Hello, my name is Jessica White. Thanks for joining me. I want to share with you the role of metacognition in learning the Bill of Rights. Let's preview the content. First, I'll share metacognition and its role in learning. Next, we'll review our topic for metacognition application, the Bill of Rights. Then, I'll discuss each of the 4 phases of metacognition in multimedia learning. Though presented linearly, these phases can each happen continuously. I will conclude with the impact of metacognition on learning the Bill of Rights and share my resources. So let's get started. It's time to think about how we think. That's metacognition. When we consider how we think, we can have a positive impact on our learning. Practicing metacognition involves using prior knowledge to inform current thinking. In this presentation, I will apply the 4 phases of metacognition in multimedia learning to a textbook chapter about the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution and includes our most basic but important rights. The phases of metacognition in multimedia learning can happen continuously but will roughly follow this order. First, defining the task. What is required? Second, setting goals and plans. What do I want to achieve? Third, deploying strategies. What will I do to be successful? And finally, evaluation of learning. A frequent question, is my strategy working? The first step is to define the task. This involves learners discovering the scope, parameters, and the expectations for what they will learn. This information will inform what they need to know and what they will need to be able to do in order to be successful. For this example, when students encounter a textbook chapter about the Bill of Rights, they'll find plenty of visuals and vocabulary pertaining to the chapter. Students will gauge the requirements of this chapter in their own ways. Some may count the number of pages in the chapter. Some may skim to see what photos or charts may be involved. Still others may determine if there are any in-chapter knowledge checks. Next, they can set goals and plans. This second step involves setting goals and plans for the required lesson. The overall goal, in this case understanding the Bill of Rights, will be broken down into several sub-goals. Setting these goals and plans will require learners to activate their prior knowledge of not only the subject, but of their prior learning experiences. After students have determined the parameters of the lesson, it's time to set goals and plans. For instance, sub-goals may be to memorize the order of amendments or to create mnemonic devices to help recall them. Some examples of how students will use prior knowledge and experience to set their own goals and plans for learning could include determining how much time they should spend reading, discovering the sub-goals that will be involved in this learning process, and decide if the in-chapter questions will support their learning or hinder them. Now it's time to act. The third step requires learners to determine the strategies that will make them successful. In multimedia learning, learners will have plenty of opportunities to find information and must be able to select which presentations are relevant. After students have their goals and plans, they can deploy a learning strategy that will help them succeed. They may want to take notes or create a chart or maybe even flashcards. Students will again activate their prior knowledge to select a strategy appropriate for the task at hand. Some may choose to skim the chapter first for highlights and then read with this knowledge in mind. Others may focus on the vocabulary first to create a base for learning. Still others may want to dive right in, intending to do every knowledge check along the way. The final step that actually happens continuously and not just at the end of the learning experience is the evaluation of learning. Shortly into the lesson, learners will need to evaluate whether their strategy will cause them to accomplish their plan and if that will help them meet their goals. As students pursue their chosen strategy, they should constantly evaluate for the effectiveness of their plan. Students will ask themselves if they are on track to accomplish their goals. For instance, if students intended to read the chapter in 30 minutes, 5 minutes in, they may evaluate if this timeline is achievable. There are those who will choose to do the knowledge checks and may decide that they are extraneous and that they don't need them to understand the content. Still others may struggle with the knowledge checks and choose to change their strategy to reread prior information. In conclusion, all learning experiences will require us to deploy metacognitive strategies. However, following these 4 steps will help learners think about their thinking and be successful. In the case of a chapter about the Bill of Rights, learners define the task of reading the chapter and accomplishing the knowledge checks. They set goals for learning, such as how long to read and whether or not to answer questions. They deployed their chosen strategies and frequently evaluated for their learning to determine if they're reaching their goals and sub-goals. Thank you for joining me.